What if you vanished without a trace? Your entire existence reduced to a single haunting question. In 1996, 19-year-old Kristin Smart walked back to her Cal Poly dorm on a foggy Memorial Day weekend, and no one ever saw her again. For 27 years, her disappearance has tormented a community, buried secrets in plain sight, and led investigators down a labyrinth of lies. Why did witnesses go silent? Who was the last person to see her alive, and how did a prime suspect evade justice for decades? Tonight, we unravel the bone-chilling details of a case that still screams from the shadows of a California campus. Where is Kristin Smart? Today, we are going to be talking about the case of Kristin Smart. Kristin Smart actually disappeared on May 25, 1996. Here's a 19-year-old student at Cal Polytechnic, I think is how you pronounce it, but most people call it Cal Poly. She was blonde. She was also 6 feet, 1 inch tall. She was a swimmer and she had a lot of friends, was a pretty social girl, and had a great relationship with her parents and her family. And tragically, she went missing. Kristin is now actually legally presumed dead as of 2002, but Kristin used to call home, her mom said, about every day, even maybe every other day. But she was very communicative with her parents, had a very good and close relationship with them. And the day that she disappeared was Friday of Memorial Weekend. Right before she went out for the night to just go party and be a college student, she called her mom, and she told her that she had a bunch of good news and couldn't wait to tell her, but didn't tell her what the news was. So her mom obviously was very anxious to find out, but she never heard from her the next day. She figured that, maybe since it's Memorial Day weekend, she kind of got off on her days and maybe she'll call Monday. When she didn't call Monday, they realized that Kristin was missing. So the night that she disappeared, most of her close girlfriends had to study or didn't want to go. So she was kind of the only one out of her immediately close friend that went to this frat party that night. And this is a party at Kappa Chi. Her mom said that even though she didn't have her closest friends with her at the party, that she still knew most people there. And she's pretty outgoing and just, Shilio about that kind of stuff, but they also noted, and her friends as well, that she wasn't really a heavy drinker like she likes to party, but she didn't drink a ton. So during the party around 2 a.m., some students came across Kristin just completely passed out drunk on someone's lawn a couple houses down from the frat party. The students that came across her were named Cheryl Anderson and Tim David. So according to them, they offered to walk her back to her dorm, which is what you should do. Party 101 is that if you see someone that's completely intoxicated, make sure that they get help or get home, or, someone is watching over them. You don't just leave someone laying on the lawn, clearly. So they decided to walk her home. As they were walking, this guy named Paul Flores kind of joined in their group. I'm sure he was out partying too. There's kids cruising around campus. Tim Davis actually drove to the campus, so he left them first. Cheryl Anderson didn't want to make the full walk to Kristin's dorm, so she figured Paul would be able to take Kristin the rest of the way. So when they got kind of to her dorm, she split off and told him, continue, taking her back to the dorm. Paul Flores barely knew Kristin, and according to him, she was barely walking straight. He had to put his hand on her hips, several times on her waist, and make sure she walked straight. He said that a couple times. He gave her a hug because she was freezing, in his own words. Laura said that he left her at her dorm and then went back to his own dorm. They lived in completely different buildings. I walked with her to where the driveway was, and I went off to my dorm because the walkway goes that way towards my dorm, and then she started walking that way. So when her mom didn't hear from her over the weekend, she figured, like I said, that she'd call on Monday from Memorial Weekend. And when she didn't, she knew something was wrong. And they started calling her friends and stuff. They reported that no one had seen her since Friday. So they went ahead and decided to report it to the campus police. Now, the campus, for whatever reason, was really hesitant to declare her a missing person or to report it to the police or anything like that. At the time, they were pretty sure that she had gone on a short, quick vacation, which apparently students do all the time. They just decide to go away for the weekend, especially Memorial Day weekend. So they figured that, she went somewhere and didn't tell her parents, but parents knew that was very unlike her and that she wouldn't just go away. So her dad actually went there and put up signs and tried to persuade the police to declare it an actual missing persons case. But it took them 3 days to actually file a missing persons report. So the missing persons report came out on May 28, 1996. Her roommate realized that nothing of hers, as far as like her wallet, her keys, like important stuff, was missing from her room. All of it was still there. Now, the fact that there's alcohol involved in this case just makes it difficult in the first place, and the fact that she's not here to tell the story herself. There's no body, there was no weapon found, nothing like that. So it makes it very hard to make an arrest. It seems very obvious to me and most people that Paul Flores probably had something to do with it, since he was the last one that saw her. What makes it really interesting is that it came out afterwards that Paul had already been accused of stalking another girl on campus already. The student that he had been messing with before refused to press charges, so there's not that much information about that. So obviously they started an investigation, but it's pretty hard. There was no great place to start. About a month and a half after she disappeared, they brought in cadaver dogs, which I understand why that took so long. But anyway, a dog, if you didn't know this, a dog has 1,0,0,0,0 times the ability to smell than a human does. 1,0,0,0 times better, so they can pick up the scent of dead bodies very easily. And they brought the cadaver dogs into the campus. They immediately led them to room 128 Santa Lucia Hall, and guess whose room that was? Paul Flores. They brought in multiple cadaver dogs just to make sure that it's not just one dog messing up. Paul had a roommate named Derek, and Derek lived on the right side of the room, and Paul lived on the left side of the room. And when the dogs came in, they immediately alerted to the left side of room on the end of the mattress of Paul Flores' bed. Now, you would think that would be enough to arrest this guy, but apparently it's not. They took a part of the mattress as evidence, and then they removed the mattress completely from the room, and then they brought the dogs back, and the dogs still alerted to room 128 even without the mattress in there, which leaves experts to believe that there's a strong possibility that a dead body was in that room. His roommate Derek told the police a few things, but as far as I have researched, he told police that Paul talked to him about it and admitted to killing her and bringing her to his mom's house. Even more damning to Paul Flores' case is he had scratches on his knees and a black eye, and he claims he got the black eye from his friend Jeremy Moon's elbow that he was elbowed while they were playing a game of pickup basketball. When they interviewed Jeremy Moon, he said that Paul already had the black eye when they started playing, when they confronted him about this. He admitted to lying, but said he only lied because he didn't want it to look sketchy, and the real way he hurt himself was super lame, and he just thought they wouldn't have believed him. So he told them that the real way he got that was he was installing a sound system or something in a car, and he smacked his eye on a steering wheel. Just a little bit sketchy, right? D. How do we know that everything that you've told us so far isn't really the truth? How do we know now that you've lied to us? Well, that wasn't important though. D. Sure it is. That's important. Now everybody's got a theory, and my theory is rather simple. Paul Flores saw Kristin Smart the target of opportunity at that party, and he was bound to determined to get laid that night, and he decided to take advantage of her condition. But I believe she was drugged, and I believe that Paul Flores took Kristin Smart back to his dorm room where he raped Kristin Smart, or was attempting to rape Kristin Smart. Kristin was an athlete. She was a swimmer. And I believe that she came out of it a little quicker than anticipated and realized what had been done, or what was being done, probably brought on a pushing and shoving match, and she turned for the door after probably, and I'm guessing now, she probably threatened Paul Flores with some sort of legal sanction. A very frightened, no doubt, Paul Flores jumped her from behind and put her in a chokehold as she gasped for air. She attempted to pull his arm away from her throat and left scratches on his arm. She also was flailing, I'm guessing caught his eye with her elbow, giving him a black eye that he lied about twice. We know from his past that when Paul got scared or frightened or angry, He didn't have a stop switch, and I think he exerted extreme force until Kristin Smart suffocated or her neck snapped and she fell lifeless to the floor. Now he had a problem. He had to get rid of the body, and I believe he went out to a parking lot. He stole a car cover or two, wrapped up her body in the car cover, and transported her body in his 1,985 Nissan truck down to his mother's home at 529 East Branch Street in Arroyo Grande, California. As they were maneuvering the body out of the truck, they decided to roll it up in carpet. And I say this because Paul's father, Reuben, told an acquaintance that that's exactly what happened to Kristin. She was rolled up in carpet and concrete poured on top of her. After they didn't find anything on the campus or anything, they moved to the rest of his family's houses. So his mom owned a house. I believe she was renting this house, and also his dad's house. But they did searches of all those with the cadaver dogs and stuff. They ended up getting a pretty helpful witness statement from a neighbor that lives across the street from the house that his mom was renting out, so random people lived in the house. At the time of Kristin's death, the house was not being rented out, and his mom lived in it. So this prep cook across the street, who didn't know Paul or his family or anything, happened to just be watching out his window that night. He said he saw something that he will never forget. He says that he witnessed two men, Paul and a friend, someone over at his mom's house, digging holes and filling them with concrete. He said that the hole was waist deep, mid-thigh level, was about 7 to 8 feet long. He also said that he saw something heavy being put into the hole. Pretty damn obvious. That was Kristin's body. Never seen them before, and he was wondering why. Are these two guys digging a hole and burying something with concrete under this woman's lawn? He said that the object was so heavy that both of them needed to lift it. So he came forward a week later because he didn't know, what was going on. It's his neighbors. He didn't want to be rude, which honestly, if you see someone digging a hole that kind of looks like they're burying a body, you should probably tell the police. But he didn't want to get involved with it. So he didn't tell anyone until he saw Paul Flores's mugshot on TV a week later and realized that is the guy that I saw in the yard across the street. There was another neighbor, a woman, who just noted that there was constant construction going on over at that house that week. This apparently is still not enough because we don't have a body. We don't have proof. All we have just hearsay. There's not a weapon. So that October, so about 6 months later, the renter of the house was cleaning her car, doing a car wash, and she noticed a little blue earring on the driveway. Now this earring, according to the people who came and found it and everything, had blood on it, had something red on it, which resembled blood. When her parents saw this earring, they knew that it was their daughter's. They said this was her favorite pair of earrings. She wore them all the time, and so it was pretty damning evidence. Now what's so crazy is that the police completely fucked up with it. They put the earring in just a drawer, loosely in a drawer, and it just disappeared. It got lost forever. And during the movement of her body, one of her earrings came off, and nobody noticed it until several months later when a tenant they rented the house out to, her name was Mary Lassiter, she found the earring and it had what appeared to be dried blood on the earring, you see, I believe. By the way, the police lost the earring. They stonewalled the parents. The parents wanted to see the earring. Finally, they got in the car and drove down the San Luis Obispo. That's the 4-hour drive. And when they demanded to see the earrings, that's when the sheriff department finally admitted they lost the earring. It was handled so poorly. I mean, it's crazy because I could have been the final piece of evidence that they would need to arrest Paul of this crime. March 3rd of 1997, they brought the cadaver dogs back to that house and had them search the entire property. And the dog did alert to a concrete kind of garden area in the back. The dogs did catch human remains, which is possible that that's because it was covered in concrete. That following March on the 4th, a private contractor that was hired named Gary Mann went out to look at the area and to do some ground radar stuff. He wanted to bring the dogs back in, but the police said that they couldn't do that because they believed at that time that his mother did not reside at the house at the time that Kristin disappeared. Later on, they found out that she did in fact reside there. So they were able to do this search while Gary Mann was looking through the backyard. He discovered a ton of pieces of broken concrete. Now, this kind of led them to believe that maybe they removed her body, Paul or whoever else is involved, and all of those concrete pieces that they found were just remains of the concrete being drilled into. According to him, there were stains on the side of the house that resembled dirt being piled up against the side of the house. He obviously wanted to dig up that entire area, but he was denied by the police because they didn't want to pay to have the concrete repaired, and for some reason they broke it and didn't find anything, which is a huge loss opportunity. He even said that it would be pretty easy to even just drill a small hole directly into the bottom and take a sample of the soil underneath and run labs to see if there's any human remains found. But the police did not want to do that. To me, it almost seems like they were purposely trying to protect Paul for whatever reason. We already know where Kristin Smart is buried. We just can't get law enforcement to dig her up yet. And of course, people ask me, well, if they know where she is, why don't they dig her up? Two aspects to this case. One is returning Kristin's back to her parents for the closure. The other aspect of the case is finding enough evidence to convict the people for her death. So the family ended up filing their own lawsuit for the wrongful death of their daughter against Paul Flores since the state didn't want to do anything. They ended up dropping the charges, and his parents actually sued them back for emotional distress on Paul. The family also had accused the police of being grossly negligent in the performance of their duties, specifically because they lost what could have been crucial evidence and could have led them to closing this case. In 200, Paul ended up getting arrested for a DUI, so it's not his first time with the law, clearly. So back in September of this year, September 6, 2016, the police did a hillside excavation on the campus and areas around it looking for, bones and stuff. And they did end up finding bones, but they were not able to link them to Kristin or determine if they were even human, could have been animal bones. So that didn't do much. But back in September, they did say that they have new leads for the case, so it's possible they may still solve this. One good thing did come out of all of this, and that is the Kristin Smart Campus Security Act. It was passed into law on August 19, 1998. This was because of the slow response of the campus and just mishandling of the entire experience. That's hopefully going to prevent other things like this from happening or make cases move a lot faster on campuses. It requires all public colleges and other publicly funded educational institutions to have their security services make agreements with local police department about reporting cases involving or possibly involving violence against students, including missing students. Kristin's disappearance is still an open investigation, although she was legally presumed dead 2002. It definitely would be an interesting case to continue to follow if you want to, because it seems like they are starting to pick back up with it in the last year, that they're starting to really kind of figure a few things out. So maybe they will solve this, and maybe Kristin will finally get some justice. If for some reason Kristin is missing or left or something like that. Like I said, she is blonde, 6'1". I believe she'd be about 34 now, maybe a little older actually. If you have information, or if you happen to know something, or just want to know more about her disappearance, her family has a website, and I will link that below. If you guys enjoyed this video, I hope you're enjoying this series. I think it's pretty interesting, although it can be kind of sad. That's it for me today, guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you next video. Bye.